So, guys, we were all hoping that it wasn't going here, but it's going here, man. In Chicago politics, as usual, as goes back at least 100 years, if not farther than that. It's getting racialized again, man. If you guys don't know, the mayoral campaign is going on right now. There's about 9 candidates in the race, and there's several black candidates. And one of the things that Mayor Lightfoot's campaign was kind of insinuating is that they may be splitting the vote. Now, a lot of times in Chicago, historically the vote has broken down along racial lines, but actually, ironically, and this is kind of really an anomaly in Chicago history, Mayor Lightfoot was really not elected with a predominantly black base. It was really white liberals. We have a sizable gay community here too. LGBTQ, actually not too far from where I stay at. It's over on like Belmont, but that whole area is called Boys Town, or it used to be called Boys Town. I don't know what it's called now technically, but there's a pretty sizable gay population in Chicago. I know that kind of runs contrary to Chicago's 100% gangland reputation, but even like in the gay community, there's actually a gang there. It's the GDs. It's a set of GDs, I think, called Blue City. But yeah, Chicago, man, it's got a very diverse population as far as a lifestyle, as far as ethnicity, and she was elected with a base that was really, I would say, mostly white. In the last mayoral election, the candidate that got the highest percentage of the black vote was a guy named Willie Wilson. And ironically, he's become more popular with whites this time around. But he's not one of the leading candidates this time around, though, man. But I've been seeing signs for him like all over the northwest suburbs, like the north side of the city where it's like a large white population, man. But Chicago can have this kind of conflict because of the percentages it breaks down along almost even percentages between white, Hispanic, and black. And there's Asians mixed in there, but whites are the largest population by a small percentage. And I think Latinos and blacks are about equal. And it's constantly fluctuating, but it's about like 1/3 each. So you get these really close, elections when you've got like a candidate being supported by predominantly one ethnic group, man. But you go back all the way 150 years ago, and even the European immigrants were dividing themselves up. If you see some of my Chicago history videos, and the Irish would have their candidate, the Polish would have their candidate, and the Irish emerged as the most powerful ethnic group in Chicago because they didn't have all the countries that they were beefing with back in Europe that some of these other ethnic groups did. So, it was like they were the compromise. But the other leading candidates are a guy named Chuy Garcia, who's Hispanic, and a guy named Paul Vallas, he's a G, man. He's Greek. And so, he's kind of like the white candidate. Chuy Garcia is the Hispanic candidate, and then Mayor Lightfoot is like the black candidate. But she was never really super popular with black folks. That's the thing about this. So her campaign's been reaching out to them, and there was controversial statements made the other day because there's several other black candidates in the race. One is a guy named Jamal Green. One is, like I said, Willie Wilson. One is an alderman named Sophia King. She's represented Chicago's 4th ward. Okay, she's been an alderman since about 2016, and she's lived in the area for 30 years. Then there's a state rep named Cam Buckner. And he was raised in the Wild Hundreds in Roseland and in Washington Heights. And his platform, they said, includes a, quote, 4-star plan focusing on safety and justice, education, economic opportunity, and stabilizing the city's finances. Then you got Willie Wilson, like I said. Then you got a guy named Brandon Johnson. Okay, he's a Cook County commissioner. And he came into the race with a lot of endorsements from the Chicago Teachers Union, the American Federation of Teachers, and those are really powerful because the teachers union has like the ear of the parents, you know what I'm saying? So that's a very powerful endorsement to get in Chicago, man. He lives on the west side in the Austin neighborhood, and he used to be a teacher in the Chicago Public Schools. Now, Paul Vallas, he's the former head of the Chicago Public Schools, and he's been in a few races that were statewide. He lost when running for governor in the Democratic primary in 2002. And he lost in 2014, the governor's race, while he was Pat Quinn's running mate. So basically, he's saying he's got experience running large school districts. And he's one of the 3 leading candidates now, with him, Garcia, and Lightfoot. So Lightfoot was accused of encouraging voter suppression, they said, after she was suggesting that Southside voters who didn't vote for her reelection shouldn't vote at all in the race. Now, I felt like those words were a little bit taken out of context. She said that wasn't what she meant, but on the campaign stop in Grand Crossing over the weekend, She said that any South Side vote for, quote, somebody not named Lightfoot is a vote for Chuy Garcia or Paul Vallas. And then she asked, if you want them controlling your fate and your destiny, then stay home, then don't vote. And she identified two other frontrunners in this year's race and her only Hispanic and white challengers. So she was speaking in a predominantly black neighborhood before a group of mostly black voters, and the other black candidates in the race jumped on this, man. Jamal Green, he was saying like, this is not what we need in the city and stuff, and basically, encouraging them not to vote if they don't vote for her. So after she had cast her vote on Monday, she told reporters that she hadn't meant to imply that people should not participate in elections. She said, if I said anything other than everybody everywhere needs to vote, then I misspoke in the heat of a campaign rally. But I've been very consistent all along saying that everybody everywhere needs to step up and they need to vote just as I said today. So her opponents, were very vocal about this. Chuy Garcia said, quote, this is disqualifying rhetoric for anybody hoping to lead a Chicago that is multiracial and multi-ethnic city. And then that guy I was mentioning, Brandon Johnson, he said, quote, Chicagoans deserve real leadership and are ready to turn the page with a new mayor. So Willie Wilson said, he called the remarks delusional, divisive, dangerous, and disappointing. And he was saying that we need to move on from a Chicago that's racially divisive. So the last election cycle, Lightfoot was actually, they said, on the receiving end of similar remarks from a guy named Bobby Rush, who's our U.S. rep. He had supported Toni Preckwinkle, who was also a black woman who was the Cook County Board president who was running against Lightfoot. And Bobby Rush said at that time, quote, everyone who votes for Lori, the blood of the next young black man or black woman who is killed by the police is on your hands. He said that in 2019. So even between two black candidates, it gets racialized. And Lightfoot had accused Vallas of racism because Vallas was talking about crime. Crime, in the last few years has spiked. As you guys know, carjackings are way up. It's citywide murders, muggings. It's down a little bit from last year, but 2022, 2021, these were like historically bad years in Chicago. Even by Chicago standards, they were really bad. And so crime is, front and center in the mayoral race. And Vallas was speaking about the crime, and he said, we need to take our city back. And Lightfoot insinuated that he was, blowing a dog whistle, suggesting that what he meant was we need to take our city back from black people. Now, to me, listening to it, and given the context of what he was talking about with the crime, the obvious meaning most people was that we need to take it back from the criminals. And we need to take it back from the gangs. They were basically running the city at this point. Police with all these new laws, have their hands tied and they can't come down on these guys the way they need to. They're getting in shootouts and then being released from jail because of mutual combat and things like that. And he's saying, we need to take our city back from the guys who are basically running it right now, which is the gangs. But Lightfoot suggested that he meant black people by that. So, she's, accusing him of something very serious, but, they're going back and forth on this thing now, man. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man, who you would want to vote for if you want to make that known. So, yeah, you guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. This is your boy, Winnie Report. I'm out.